very strong, even stronger response to what he said.
Hmm.
So, what did you make of what did you make of that whole thing that they had going on?
Yeah. So I'm an avid Joe Budden podcast listener. And I listened to the episode where, again, he drops his podcast episode on the Saturday. He records on the Friday. So in terms of the album came out 6 a.m. on that Friday, like at the end of the day, he has to do a show, right? And over at that network, content is important, right? And Joe in his seat at that network, he's like he's the star player, right? He is the one that has to push or push the car for it to go, right? And everyone else will support him as such, right? Um, so again, Joe pushed an envelope, right? Again, the album just dropped. Probably listened to it once or twice, and again, I respect Joe's opinion, and I think he's very wise and he's a critical thinker, right? And he's a wordsmith. And when he goes about how he analyzes and responds to something, like he's able to pull something from it, right? So from him listening to it once or twice or how many ever times he listened to it before recording, yes, I understand him critiquing Drake based on the content of the album in terms of him mentioning a 25-year-old, him mentioning a 21-year-old, him mentioning like name dropping Haley, Nadine, Chardine, all that, right? Like you understand, like for sure he can criticize the what he's talking about in terms of the content of the album, but again, like that's just one aspect of his review. Joe also said he did like the album, but again, Joe and it's a clip, right? A clip can get spun in a very negative lens, right? So they took a clip of him saying, "Stop hanging out with 25-year-old girls, hang out with people your age," and that is what I guess hurt Drake, right? Or Drake found disrespect in that stance. All right. And of course, like you're gonna feel disrespect because you like Drake's not hanging out with Kai Cenat, Bobby, da da da, but he is a chameleon in terms of he knows what the culture is and he knows what people are interested in and what people are gravitating to, and he knows how to utilize a trend. He's a marketing genius. So when he's doing all this, he knows he does it for a reason. And Drake has continually done what he does, and his team and the brand has done what they've done because they understand what the trends are and what the target audience is. So it's not so much like what he speaks on is what he does or what he goes through. Yes, there's probably like he's very authentic and he does get a bit deeper into his lifestyle, but he's also pulling that from like a one vacation or one trip or da da da, and he's writing it, and and that's what he's putting out as art, right? And it's realistic things that again we can't all compare or we can't all understand what Drake goes through, but like there's some things you can pull from, like that's happened to me, or yeah, these girls always move like that. Like you can understand that. So the I disagree with Joe because one, you just listen to the album, like you had to put something together. You have a people are all waiting for your review. You have to give a review within a short time frame, and then of course Drake didn't take it how well, who knows, right? He got what who knows. Right? At the end of the day, it's all smoke and mirrors. Joe could have done this, clipped it up because he wanted to get Drake's attention, similar to Charlemagne. And it's just unfortunate that we live in such a a toxic negative generation where like it's more popular to hate rather than just saying, "Oh yeah, I loved it." That's not going to get clipped up, right? If you say, "Oh, this is an amazing project. It was flawless. There's nothing I didn't like," you know, no, you're going to have to hate on it or find some type of negative component to the album and go with it and scream and yell and be theatric because that's gonna get that's gonna be trendy. And they're doing the same thing. Drake and Joe's doing that to gain an audience, to gain traction, to get something trendy, to be out there because it's media at the end of the day, right? Like you want to be trending, you want to be the talk of the discussion, you want to be in the Reddit groups, you want to be all about that, right? Drake's doing the same thing because he understands the audience, he understands this generation, so he goes in and he talks about what this generation wants to talk about and what they want to hear. If Drake does his 444, they're going to kill him. 110%. If 36 or 37-year-old Drake is here talking about investing and all this, like, come after her loss, what are we talking about here?
And
Right? So that's where I'm like, Joe, come on. Come on. Like, Drake has time to do all that whenever he wants. So for you to get on him talking about hanging out with young people, all this, when you are a trick daddy or known for being a trick daddy, like you can't be hypocritical in that sense, knowing that this is your bag. You're in the strip club. You know what this is going to do in the strip club. So again, Joe, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because again, you're creating content, right? You need content that's going to be trendy or be clipped up or get some type of attention. He was successful in that, right? It's just unfortunate that it has to be hate that leads to something being a moment.
when I look back, when I think about this whole situation, I think there's many layers to it, right? The first thing that I notice is that there's a lot of projection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, the last episode that we did on the expectations, you said, and you called it spot on. You said, Drake responded to Charlemagne, and I know Joe Budden wished that was him, right? And you just said that as a joke, obviously, but there's always truth behind some jokes because I'm sure right now, Joe Budden is like celebrating I'm sure he's celebrating in his house that Drake gave him that attention.
Podcast numbers are up.
100%.
Podcast numbers are up. Everything's up.
So I think a lot of people's issues with Drake, to be honest, is projection because they're looking at him and his age and what they think he should be doing, what he should be talking about, and what his subject matter should revolve around, right? And, maybe I'm guilty of it too, to a certain extent, because I never got at him for his music, right? I've always just said, to me, it's just the antics of the fingernail stuff and the different color clips in his hair.
Yeah.
It's not something I would personally do myself, right? But if that's if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. So I think a part of it is like there's that projection of what they expect. Because even too, I heard, like obviously what Joe Budden said, like, yo, stop. I don't want to see you hanging out with Kai Cenat. I don't want to see you talking to these 21 and 25-year-old girls.
Yeah.
Because if you were that age, maybe you wouldn't hang out with a Kai Cenat. And you maybe talk to girls that age.
Right.
It doesn't mean he has to. And this is where sometimes being a fan of someone, it can kind of cross that line into where it gets a little bit toxic and unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because when people are a fan of someone, there's a certain, I don't want to say entitlement, but there's a certain level of control that people think they have over the object of their fandom.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they want to be able to say like, oh, why are you wearing that? Why are you saying that? Why are you hanging out with those people? Why are you with that person?
Yeah.
Like there's a certain level of entitlement or control that people think that they have over that object of their admiration. And I think Joe Budden kind of was expressing that when he reviewed the podcast, right? And that's why I'm glad that you and we took that time to at least come back and do this episode and have a conversation, because imagine if we recorded the same day it dropped. The
Yeah,
opinion you gave me now was vastly different than the
100%.
opinion you gave me when I texted you that morning,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you had time to sit on the music. And
Hmm.
when you sent me that response, I said to you, I'm like, I want to give this thing, I want to give it some time
Yeah,
because I suspect that this is the kind of album that is going to age well, to be honest.
yeah, yeah.
I do think it's going to age well, especially as hip hop continues the steep decline that it's on.
Yeah, yeah. They're gonna be looking back for all the
We're gonna,
dogs for sure.
yeah, we're gonna look back at this and say like this album was a bright spot in a dark time.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
Exactly.
and even with Charlemagne, when Charlemagne, he was saying, I was hoping that, Drake would talk about, getting married and starting a family.
Hmm.
That's because that's what you valued at
Yeah,
that age. It doesn't mean
yeah.
that's what he has to value, right?
Hmm.
Like, would it be nice to hear him talk about, picking up his son from school and helping him with his homework and being more involved in his life? I mean, maybe it would make for good content. I don't know. But
To
like,
you, exactly.
yeah,
Like,
like maybe it would. I don't know, right? And even with 444, like I thought that was a good Jay-Z album,
hmm.
but it is widely panned as not being a good album by him.
Yep.
Like a certain demographic of people like it, yes, but a wider audience doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And Jay-Z was the same guy that told Nas, are you trying to kick knowledge? And then 16 years later, you're kicking knowledge,
Yeah.
right? So you have to, like, people need time to evolve and grow into who they're going to become. Maybe
Hmm.
one day Drake will become that type of artist, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what is happening is I think there was projection.
Hmm.
And I would say, like, when I read that response that Drake made, I was like, damn, bro. Like, this guy brought this guy
Yeah.
brought a gun to a fist fight, bro. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right. But at the
Yeah.
same time, like Joe's been taking a lot of these like little pot shots at him for so long.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
long. Yeah.
and Drake, he's someone he's very into social media. Like I can
Hmm.
tell he's really into social media. He cares about these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, he took that person, especially when it's a media personality that has a certain level of influence that
Hmm.
can control narratives to an extent.
Exactly. Exactly.
But
Yeah.
also too, I think he admires him. And that's another thing I want to discuss is because Joe Budden was, people were referencing that video where people were like, oh, Drake is a fan of Joe Budden and he went to one of his shows or something. Like, listen,
Yeah. Yeah. And he used to rap like, and Drake used to rap like Joe and all that. Yeah. I've heard it all.
listen,
Yeah.
you can respect someone's artistry, right? You can still respect someone's artistry, but you can still be able to say that, yo, like just because I respected what you did as an artist, it doesn't mean that you really panned out to be something, right?
Hmm.
So he's not really wrong in how he assessed his career. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
respected your artistry because maybe you're good at like, putting words together and, your similes and metaphors were on point. But that doesn't necessarily mean now that you're inspiration. He just respected how you did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's unbelievable, really and truly. And again, it's they have an interesting dynamic. I feel like Drake keeps his friends close and his enemies even closer, and that's why he's able to always get at them in a very unique way, right? When he's getting at enemies such as Pusha T, for example, or an ASAP Rocky or Joe Budden, like he's very aware to the finer details, right? So when he's writing up a long post like that, you can see how detailed. It's not just saying nonsense. You can see how clever he is with these responses to these individuals that want to get at him,
yeah,
right?
the Nietzsche genes, bro. That kills me, bro. But
Do
that
one
is
of
their
those, do your things while I do my
yeah,
things.
but that is their audience though. Like
Yeah,
that is who Joe Budden would attract, right? Like, he's not gonna
yeah,
attract the mass audience that Drake has. At least not as a rapper. He's not doing it, bro.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no one's gonna be pumping it up, bro. Like so that's just what it is. And I think, so I think that was a very strong response to give back to the guy. But I think he had to also let it be known, like, yo, listen, like, you can't just talk to me any which way you feel like it. Like, there has to
Yeah,
be a certain level of respect that you have to show. Like,
100%. Yeah.
you can't just listen to an album the first day and form an opinion and like, because this is content. This stuff's forever, bro.
Yeah, and this is
So,
this is Drake. There's not like I understand like we're criticizing, we're critical about a new artist, right? Or artists are just getting going, right? And we say we like their first project, their debut project, their second project. I didn't like XYZ. This is a artist that has been around and at the top of the game for damn near 15 years, giving out Michael Jackson type level of performance and greatness, right? So talking to him or trying to say how he should be acting or maneuvering or what he should be rapping about, it sounds crazy. And then it just sounds crazy because it's like what do you mean? Like this is a guy that is dominating. He first week he did 410K. You know what I mean? So like like that's why for Drake, it's like it's unfortunate that he can't really just like block it out. But I appreciate him almost being aware. It's almost like he doesn't ignore fans or the audience or the media. He's very, very well aware. He's very in tune, right? So you got to appreciate that he actually listens or he tries to like tap in to the culture and he doesn't just like shy away from it because it's like we feel like heard in that sense. And in return, he always delivers year to year to year. So again, with all this, and again, I'm glad that Drake's taking his time away, his health concerns and everything. Pray that he's good and he can come back and continue to be that dominant force in the music industry that he's been for the last 15 years. So again, I think it's good for one, I think it's good for the music industry just to take a real look in the mirror and say, what are we in the next 5 to 10 years? What is it gonna look like when we don't have a Drake project to discuss from a podcast lens? They built up this Drake project for probably 3 weeks of content, saying, "Oh, he dropped this single, or he dropped this cover art, or he dropped this Adonis, Ray Tay Tay," right? When you remove such a huge figure from the media space, this is like when LeBron leaves the NBA. What is the conversation looking like? Jason Tatum is had another good game. Oh, Giannis, he's killing it with Dame. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it's like we have to show a different level of appreciation and not just kind of brush it off when we're discussing his greatness because it's pivotal, right? We're going to feel it when he is absent from this space, right? So again, yes, we can criticize it as much as we want, but it shouldn't be a criticism where it's like you need to change.
yeah. And
It should never be that.
Yeah, and there's 2 points that I want to say. It's this weird cycle where, when you're on the come up and you're like the underdog, everyone loves you and they root for
Yeah.
you and they want to
Mm-hmm.
see you win. And then you win, they're happy for you. I'm glad that you did it, And then you win again. And then you win again. And then you just keep winning. Then
We always see this in everything.
it
Sports
becomes
and
resentment.
music. Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes a form of resentment, right? And in one of the episodes I did, I talked about this book, The 48 Laws of Power. One of the books, and one of the laws in it is that, never appear too perfect because it'll only make people dislike you more. So one thing about Drake is, yeah, musically, he shows us his vulnerabilities and like you read headlines about the imperfections in his life, but professionally, like the guy's goated. Like the guy has done anything and everything you can think of, right? So a lot of people look at that with envy, and then it starts to become hatred, and it becomes a lack of appreciation that people have. And I do think that this break coming up, I think it'll do wonders for him. You know, just on a mental health level, on a physical, you know, on a physical health level, creatively, I think it'll be great for him, right?
Yeah.
And it'll give him time to, you know, bond with his son more on a familial level, right? So I think overall it'll do wonders for him. I wish him the best. I have nothing negative to say about the guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have a lot of love and respect for him. I'm going to include that in there too. Because I do, truthfully, I do have a lot of love and respect for the guy. Like at the end of the day, like I grew up on this man's music. You know what I mean? Like when I was going from high school to undergrad to adulthood, he was
always there.
He was always there dropping heat. You know what I mean? So I have to have like respect and appreciation for it. You know, like I can tell you exactly where I was when he dropped Take Care, what stage of my life I was at, and what that album, you know, meant to me, right? So I do have that love and respect and appreciation for him and what he does. So, you know, definitely well deserved for him, you know, with him taking that break. But another thing that I want to discuss, because we're talking about like hip hop as a whole, right? It's a very weird genre and industry because we're the only ones that talk about, oh, this guy's so old. Why don't you just retire? You're so old. Just retire. And I don't see this in any genre of music. Like
rock, country.
None of that. Like what's that guy? Like Miley Cyrus's dad, Billy Ray Cyrus, right?
Yeah.
He could announce an album tomorrow and people will be excited. Oh, we're getting
sold out shows, sold out dates. Yeah.
Oh, we're getting a Billy Ray Cyrus album. He's my favorite, right?
Yeah.
And they'll have excitement. But like if a Drake or, you know, or one of the like, if a guy like Drake says, yo, I'm dropping an album, they're going to bring up his age immediately into the conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, if he's going to rap about that young people stuff, I don't want to hear it. I want to hear him talk about that grown man shit. You know what I mean? Like, we age our artists out.
Yeah.
And it's a very strange thing that we do. I think with him taking a break, I think it's a good thing that he's doing it because it's going to give the industry time to, like you said, do some soul searching because labels are not checking for rappers anymore.
No, not at all. Not at all. Or even if it's short, it's like, okay, you dropped a project, a music video. All right, go on tour. When are you going to drop another one? There's nothing unique about it, right? It's just, okay, we listen. That's it. All right, you might build up your album and then you build up a tour. And then, you're just a worker.
Yeah, it's weird. Like what was it? Last week, I saw this thing on Twitter, right? Or X, whatever people want to call it. But I saw a picture of Paul McCartney from the Beatles. I had personally never listened to the Beatles before, right? But he posted a picture of him and his wife. I think either it was his birthday or her birthday. I can't remember, but it was just him basically saying, celebrating this day with my beautiful wife. And then I was just looking at the replies and everyone's like, oh, thank you for all the great memories. Thank you for the music. Thank you. You know, like you're amazing. You're awesome. All these kind things that they're saying. But then let Drake post a picture of him at dinner. Yo, why is he wearing that? Why is he wearing that? What is he doing? It's going to be a complete opposite reaction. So it's a very strange thing that's going on in the genre, right? And I think it's gone to a point now where it can't survive. Like this is not like you're always
not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Like you're always going to look for new, younger talent, and then what happens with the one? What happens with the ones you just discovered? They get older, so you toss them away.